Welcome inside the RX Muscle Studios for another episode of Ask Dave, better known as hashtag Ask Dave, brought to you by, as always, by Species Nutrition. It is July 1st, and we have introduced our new product. Now, we've kept you in the dark about which new flavor it was going to be, but today, on speciesnutrition.com and across our social media platforms, we have introduced our brand new flavor of Isolize, Caramel Macchiato. Now, we had some very interesting guesses. We had Red Velvet, we had Orange Cream, we had Fruity Tooty, and then we had some that were not safe for camera. But it is, in fact, Caramel Macchiato, as we now bring in Dave Palumbo, founder and president of Species Nutrition. Dave, Caramel Macchiato is the answer to the mystery flavor of Isolize. Why don't you tell the viewers a little bit more about it?
Well, we're always looking to innovate new flavors. I mean, we know we have the highest quality whey isolate at 27 grams of protein per 31 grams serving size. That's not debatable, but obviously people get tired of using the same flavor over and over and over again. Not me. I'm a machine. I'll eat vanilla peanut butter day in, day and night, and I'm fine with that. But I know a lot of people, especially when they're dieting, they want something different taste. That's why cinnamon donut was such a popular flavor, because people are like, wow, cinnamon, we love it. And then I'm like, well, how are we going to outdo cinnamon donut and cookies and cream? So I said, we got to come up with something that no one has. And caramel macchiato is just like, it's something that, like, you think about Starbucks, and everyone loves Starbucks coffee. So I said, we got to come up with something that has that caramelly, vanilla-y taste with a little bit of coffee tinge to it. And it, to me, I think it might be the best flavor we have. You got to like that flavor, but if you do, you're going to go nuts for this stuff. And the great thing about it is that I'm making it available only exclusively at speciesnutrition.com. So you can't go into your stores and buy it. You can't go into any other websites and buy it. You got to buy it from us. And Sid, are we running some kind of a special this month on it?
Well, I mean, right now it's limited edition, so right now you're going to have to go and get it at its price. But we are having, for the other flavors with the 44 serve, we have 25% off, free shipping across the U.S. And if you spend $200 or more on speciesnutrition.com, you get a Species gym bag. Dave, that's not the only big news. We have a lot going on today, a lot going on this month. Tonight, 7 p.m., Heavy Muscle TV. Now, going into the day, we had a big show already planned. We had John De La Rosa. We had Kevin Jordan, who's stepping on stage, both of them who are stepping on stage in Chicago this weekend. We had Erica Blockman coming on the show as well.
And Sandra, her twin sister.
Sandra, her twin sister.
For a special announcement, Sid.
Yes, exactly. So you want to stay tuned to that. But today, Dave, we got word that another special guest will be live in studio for Heavy Muscle TV.
It might be a guest and a half, actually. And you know what? If you don't know what that half is, then you know this guy very well. He's a good friend to me, to the show, to the website. Johnny Styles says it's a friend of his as well. He's one of the hardest training guys in the entire industry. He was a former American Gladiator. The guy I'm talking about, of course, is Mike O'Hearn. He's going to be in our studios live here, and I bet he has his dog with him, because I know he does not travel without that dog. That's his half person that I said that he would bringing with him. And as you know, here in RX Muscle Studios, we're very animal friendly. So hopefully we'll be able to get both of them on the set. We might have to buy a couple dog bones for his dog to keep him happy, but hey, we are here to please.
So again, Mike O'Hearn tonight on Heavy Muscle TV, in addition to John De La Rosa, Kevin Jordan, Erica, and Sandra Blockman, 7 p.m. right here on RxMuscle.com. But that's not all. July 18th, so we're now 18 days away from Bros versus Pros. This is going to be held in Shirley, Long Island, and it's going to feature four-time Mr. Olympia Jay Cutler. So if you haven't heard, now you know. Jay Cutler is going to be live, Bros versus Pro, July 18th rather. We are going to carry all the live coverage right here on RxMuscle.com.
Not to mention, Sid, not only will it be live streamed, but we also have Akeem Williams, Jeff Beckham, going to be competing in the event. Jay will be there as the ambassador to the event and to the gym opening, but Beckham and Akeem Williams will be there competing, and this will be Akeem's 1 week after he just competed. And that's to show you what a hardcore guy this guy is. Most people would never get under a squat, or I should say under a deadlift bar. with 1 week out from, I guess you could say coming off a show. But Akeem Williams is truly the hardcore guy that he is. And, of course, Tracy Hess will be representing the women. And we have $2,000 in cash prizes to give away. So, guys, come down, because you know what? If you beat the pros in the deadlift for reps or the bench press for reps, men will be benching 225. The women will be benching 60% of their body weight. The men will be deadlifting 315. The women 165. If you beat the pros, you're going to go home with a lot of freaking money and a lot of bragging rights, and everyone's going to be able to see you live on rxmuscle.com. So that's a super exciting event. That's Saturday, July 18th at Unique Fitness Extreme Gym in Shirley, Long Island. I promise you, it's one of the nicest gyms you'll ever be to.
And then, of course, Akeem Williams. Dave had an interview with him last week. That is available now on speciesnutrition.com. 30-minute question and answer with Dave Palumbo. You can join us on the Muscle Central Forum on rxmuscle.com. You can tweet your questions using hashtag AskDave. Join us on our official Facebook page or official Instagram page at official_RxMuscle. We start on the Muscle Central Forum on rxmuscle.com and go to jkeys71. Dave, I hate this show so much I would rather be the guy in the bathroom stall next to Greg Valentino than listen to another minute of your crap. My question regards delayed onset muscle soreness, or DOMS. What is it? Why does it happen? And what can I do to treat it?
A lot of people think that delayed muscle on soreness is a good sign, that it's like a sign of I got a good workout in, I'm going to grow from this. But in reality, delayed muscle on soreness is not the soreness you get the next day. It's the muscle soreness you get 2 days after. And that usually means you're not recovering. It means your body is overtrained to a certain degree. A lot of people will experience this when they first start working out because their body's just not used to the stresses of a weight training session or a high-intensity cardio session. So you find that you're sore for days and days and days. That usually goes away as you continue to train, but every once in a while you'll get one of those where you're really, really sore for a long period of time, and that usually is a signal, your body telling you, take a step back, rest an extra day, let your body heal up. Because remember, you only can grow as much as your body can recover. If your recovery is lowered or the capacity to recover is diminished, you obviously will not recover as well and you won't grow as well. So use the DOMS not as an incentive to do more, but as a key to cut back and rest.
Reminder that the best I hate this show or I would rather be doing X than watching this show wins Nitralized by Species pre-workout. And for the best overall question of the show, you get Nitralized as well as this Species Nutrition gym bag. Let's go now to Pain Train. Dave, this show is so terrible. I would rather slather myself in cod liver oil and do naked squats after drinking the cleanse that John Romano did, making it feel as an ice pick was coming out of his butt. My question is, where do you get your scientific studies from, and what do you look for in a study to show its reliability, example, double-blind controls, etc., in order to know if it's not a biased study? Also, do side effects from prolonged AAS use come back faster once you start taking them again, like high cholesterol, high BP, etc.? Thank you.
I make up all my studies, actually. It's a lot easier than having no. In all reality, look, there's good studies, there's bad studies. I know how to read studies, so I could tell if something's being skewed. But there are supplement companies out there that will pay universities to do a study and with their product and come out with a certain number of results. So if they say, look, we need this proved, here's $35,000. And you could prove anything if you set up the parameters of your experiment properly. So those experiments that the supplement companies usually claim as being a supplement company, a research group did a study with their product. Usually, I don't believe those. When you have a generic type study that comes out about a specific ingredient, a lot of times those are pretty well done. But once again, you got to look at how long the study was conducted. If it's only a couple of weeks, that's not a good indicator as well. Also, I've seen studies where they show fish oil is bad for you, and then I've seen studies where they show fish oil is great for you. So you could almost prove anything. The more studies that pile up in favor of one, bit of data, over another, those are usually the studies that you want to kind of stick with. If someone comes up with one particular study that shows something, that it could be either a blockbuster first study or it could mean something that's completely out of whack. Like I think they came out with a study years ago that showed that testosterone wasn't good for you. And then they came out with 6 studies to dispute that. So you got to keep it in context. A lot of people send me studies through my email and say, Dave, what do you think about this? Is there any merit to it? And a lot of times I can read through it and I can pick through the garbage, so to speak. And I can say, this is kind of flawed because of this and this and this. Sometimes it looks like it might be good. And I tell those people, only the test of time will tell whether that is an accurate study or not. I'd like to see it duplicated again by another group. And so, I take studies with a grain of salt. The tried and true method is test the stuff out. If you see results, it works. That's why it's important to be in the trenches and using the stuff and working out on your own. It's hard to be a guru or a guy who advocates stuff who doesn't actually, live the lifestyle himself.
We stick with the Muscle Central Forum and check in with David Kua. Hi, Dave. I hate this show so much that I would rather be friends with Aaron, trust him for important stuff, and watch PJ Braun. Whoa. Yeah, that's not safe for work. Then watch this nonsense video. What are your thoughts on vegan diet for non-athletes, regular gym rats, women, and your view on the new fitness YouTube entertainment, Vegan Gains?
As far as, vegan, bodybuilders go, and I've discussed this before, I'm not really a big advocate of true vegan. Some people say they're a vegan, but they actually eat like eggs and whey protein. Those are not true vegetarians. The vegan vegetarians, the ones that don't have any dairy products as well, very hard to build muscle because of the low branch chain amino acid levels in these ingredients, these food sources. Plus, you have to eat a ton of this stuff to really get enough high quality protein. I don't think it's a good idea. I have a lot of people who sometimes have overcome cancer, and they're trying to stay away from meat products and dairy products, and for that. In that sense, for health purposes, it might be okay. But if you're trying to maximize muscle gains and minimize fat loss, you really want to use an animal source of protein. If you don't want to use meat and chicken and fish, you could always use eggs and or whey protein. But I don't advocate a vegan lifestyle. Now, I don't know what that other thing you had mentioned.
A fitness YouTube entertainer, Vegan Gains.
I don't know him. I haven't seen any of his stuff.
Okay. We stick with the Muscle Central Forum and check in with Gorilla. Dave, I would rather share a jail cell with Chris Aceto and Martin Kjellstrom for 3 years after being arrested by Officer Farah for selling a fake Sandow on eBay than listen to your show.
That's a good one.
That is a candidate right there. Dave, what are your thoughts on coming off a diet? Is metabolic damage a real thing, and should I reverse diet or just start eating normally again?
I don't believe in metabolic damage. I'm sorry. I know a lot of you guys. There's people out there that are like metabolic damage, like advocators. They're they walk around out of shape and they say, I have metabolic damage, and that's all there is to it. And it's a great excuse. It's like saying I'm pregnant. How can you be mad at a guy who's got metabolic damage or someone who's pregnant, right? You have to say, well, I guess they got to be fat. I think, what happens after a show a lot of times is that people go crazy and eat everything in sight. And then they get heavy, and then they use that as an excuse. Oh, my body's not responding. What happens after a show is you burn out. You mentally burn out. You can't keep that same pace up. A lot of people go nuts and eat everything in sight. A lot of people just don't feel normal, and they don't understand why they don't feel normal, so they think they're not eating enough, so they keep eating and eating and eating, and all they do is get fat after that. So you have to understand you're not going to feel normal after a show. It's going to take you almost 4 weeks, sometimes 4 to 6 weeks to feel like yourself again, like you're not starved all the time, even though your stomach's full. So what you got to do is you got to understand that. You got to design a program, and usually what I tell people is go back to the contest diet and add maybe 25, 35, 40 grams of carbs per meal, clean carbs, but give yourself a couple, a cheat meal here and there so that you're not depriving yourself, but that will get you back on schedule. After a couple of weeks of eating like that and not feeling good and not feeling normal, you'll start to feel normal again. It'll just happen, and that's the way to go about doing it. To start, going, after a week or two where you say, I gained 40 pounds, where most of it's water, saying I have metabolic damage and doing all kinds of crazy, nutty stuff because you're in a panic, that's not the way to handle it. There might be 1% of the population that has serious, and what I would term metabolic damage would be like a decrease in neurotransmitters, maybe lack of serotonin and norepinephrine and acetylcholine, which is going to, hamper fat loss, hamper energy levels. Those people, might legitimately have a claim to the fact that they are exhausted, essentially, and that's what it amounts to. And the only thing that will restore those neurotransmitters and repair this, depletion or adrenal fatigue, if you want to call it, is rest. That means don't overtrain. It means take days off, and it means go gently after your show is over to let your body recover.
You're watching Ask Dave on RxMuscle.com, brought to you by Species Nutrition. Go to speciesnutrition.com. Check out our brand new caramel macchiato flavored Isolise limited edition, only available at speciesnutrition.com. We now go to our livestream.com live chat box questions. We're getting a lot of them. Let's start with Shaq88. Dave, there is so much confusion over fat loss on low carb or simply creating a calorie deficit. In your opinion, is it possible to get into single-digit body fat in a calorie deficit with high carbs?
Look, if you lower your calorie, the term saying you're in a calorie deficit and then high carbs is almost antithetical to each other, because let's face it, if you're on, low calories and high carbs, it probably means you're eating only carbs and no protein or fat at all. Because otherwise, what are you going to do? So, if you ate 600 grams of carbs a day and you ate, which would be about what is that? Well, you couldn't even do that because that's a 2,400 calorie diet. That's not even a low calorie diet. You can't do it. They don't match. Can you lose weight on a high carb, low calorie diet? No, because it's impossible to have a low calorie diet while eating high carbs. Can you lose weight on high carbs? Absolutely, if you have a fast enough metabolism. It's hard to create that calorie deficit when you're eating a lot of carbohydrates. Something's going to have to give. You never want to sacrifice protein intake, and you never want to sacrifice essential fat intake, because those are necessary for repairing and building muscle. So once you've satisfied those requirements, what's left? Well, what's left is fat intake, carb intake. You're not going to have that many if you're going to put yourself in enough of a calorie deficit to lose weight. So unless you have a gifted metabolism for burning carbohydrates, most people will have to go low carb to lose fat. Not to say that there aren't the gifted people out there who can eat high carbs. And I know people like that. Juan Morel is one of them. He can eat high carbs and lose body fat. I can do that too, probably, even at my age of 47. But not many people. Most people have to starve. Most people have to suffer. Chris Aceto will tell you that. And you never want to lower protein in a bodybuilder too low, because then you risk muscle loss. So to answer your question, maybe, but in a very small few case of people.
We stay with the livestream.com live chat box questions and go to Josh Annis. Hey, Dave, I was in the gym the other day doing decline bench presses, which I haven't done in over a year. I wasn't going super heavy, but for the last few days after training, my pecs have been incredibly sore. I've been sore plenty of times before, having lifted for 12 years, but never like this. How do I know whether I've torn or pulled something, or if I'm just experiencing intense soreness?
Well, without an MRI, you're not going to know if you tore a muscle. But usually, if you tear a muscle, you're going to see black and blue in the area or in and around the area, excessive inflammation. Usually if you're just in pain and sore, it just means you had a tough workout. Maybe you didn't sleep enough for a couple days before that. Maybe you're not taking the right nutrition. I'll tell you one thing. I've worked out in the gym and done workouts that I normally do, and it never gets sore. And I didn't eat something because I had to go I had to go to a meeting, and I figured it'll take 10 minutes. And 6 hours later, I'm going home to eat, and I'm sore. I'm walking around like I'm 90 years old. So, if you're not eating to recover, or you're overtraining where it's impossible to recover, that will lead to muscle soreness, and it'll make you might even think you permanently damaged something because of that. In those cases, I suggest taking off 2-3 days from the gym.
Let's stay with the live chat box. Go to Double Dan. Dave, what are your best choices for fish? Tilapia, cod, salmon, or orange roughy?
Well, if you're eating a fattier cut of fish, if that's what you're looking for, because I break down my diets, fatty sources of protein versus lean sources of protein. Salmon, red meat, swordfish would fit in the fatty sources of protein category. I think salmon is number one, especially since there's no mercury in salmon. So, you eat too much swordfish, you can get some mercury, accumulation. Even tuna, ahi tuna will have a lot of mercury in it. So I always pick salmon, and I like the taste of salmon. As far as lean fishes go, tilapia sounds like it's ideal because it's cheap and it tastes good. The problem is they're all farm raised. You do not want to eat farm raised tilapia. Not good for you. I would recommend wild caught cod, which is pretty cheap too, and it might not have the taste of There's a reason why tilapia tastes like chicken, because they feed the tilapia chicken shit. And I'm not kidding. They feed the chickens the corn and whatever grain, and then when the chickens shit, they take the shit and they make feed out of it for the tilapia. So you do not want to eat tilapia, or at least limit your amounts of tilapia you eat, because there's got to be some terrible toxins in there. Plus, you're not going to get any omega-3 fats in there because they're not eating a natural diet of other fish and or algae. So I like cod as a better choice. I like, in Long Island here we have delicious flounder and fluke, which is a great white fish as well, and they're locally caught, so it's all wild, and that's what I used to eat back in the day for my diet.
Had to ask a fish question while I'm fasting. Let's go to on our Facebook page, facebook.com/rxmuscle.com, all one word, and go to Kel Hutchins. Dave, this show is so bad, I would rather hit a gay bar with Chris Aceto in my favorite Village People outfit. Dave, with the 1993, you're thinking about it now. Dave, would the 1993 Dorian Yates be Mr. Olympia today?
100 times over. No one would even be close to him. That's how good he was. I mean, he was beating Flex Wheeler and Nasser El Sambadi and Kevin Levrone and Paul Dillette and Chris Cormier and Sean Ray. Nowadays, he's got to beat? Phil Heath is not even. I don't even know if Phil Heath would have been top 5 back in the 90s. That's how good the guys were back then. So yeah, Dorian would have crushed everyone today.
We'll stay with the Facebook page and go to Osama Alvaro. This show is so bad that I would rather run through a cornfield naked. Dave, all right. I just don't see where he's going with that. Dave, can I live on a keto diet 3 to 4 months to prep for a show and make great condition?
Absolutely. I mean, I do it all the time. The only thing you want to do is you want to give yourself a cheat meal once a week where you're going to increase your carb intake for that one meal. What that does is spike insulin levels, which in turn keeps T4, inactive thyroid, converting to T3, which is active thyroid, at high levels in the body. We don't want that process of conversion to slow down, because then the metabolism slows down. Other than that, absolutely. You can stay on. I know people that stay on it year round. I don't know how they do it. It's kind of hard. Even I don't stay on it year round. But you can do it as long as you give yourself that carb day once a week.
Let's take another one from our Facebook page from a good friend, Christos Panayotou. Dave, I hate this show so much, I'd rather go through all the tips of the week in social media. Very nice. Been paying attention. Is the Palumbo keto diet beneficial for athletic performance? There's some data indicating that diets very low in carbohydrates can improve fat oxidation and possibly power to weight ratio.
I don't know. If you're doing a high intensity level sport, you would think, all right, long distance runners, they burn a lot of fat. But you know what? They're running at a high pace, so they use glycogen, stored glucose, as a fuel source. So for athletic performance, I wouldn't recommend a ketogenic diet. Okay, if someone in high school came to me and said, I got to lose some weight, I'm a football player, I might lower his carbs. Look, the great thing about carbs is that just like gasoline in your car, you don't need a full tank for the car to run. Matter of fact, you don't even need a quarter of a tank for the car to run good. The car will run amazingly as long as there's some gas in the tank. So if you're trying to burn fat, keep your carb intake low, but eat enough to sustain and nourish the exercises or the activity levels that you're doing. Once you do that, you're fine. You'll actually perform better when you're not as filled up with carbs than when you are. So it doesn't matter how many carbs you have, as long as you have enough to sustain the exercise that you're doing. And I think that's the key. People think it's all or none. Either I got to have full glycogen stores or none. It's not that way. For athletic performance, you eat enough carbs to sustain the activity, but not enough where you're going to get fat from it.
You're watching Ask Dave on RxMuscle.com. Reminder, tonight, Heavy Muscle TV returns, a jam-packed episode, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Erica and Sandra Blockman, John De La Rosa, Kevin Jordan, and then Mike O'Hearn joining us live in studio, 7 p.m. You're not going to want to miss it. Heavy Muscle TV on rxmuscle.com. We now go to our Instagram page, official Instagram. RxMuscle is our Instagram page. And we go to Dirk Wone Dave. Now, this one I'm going to have to, it's a great, I hate this show, but You got a dark mind there, my friend. My question is, what is the best weight loss stack for a natural athlete going into a show? There are so many BS products in the market, hard to keep up with what is actually effective.
I hate plugging my own stuff because it seems so self-serving, but I'm a big believer, and a lot of people know this, in stimulant-free fat burners. Because when you're dieting, if you overstimulate your body, you're going to raise cortisol levels, which are going to suppress the immune system. They're going to cause abdominal fat deposition. Okay, they're going to crank your heart rate and your blood pressure up. Not that great for you, when you're in a depleted state. I like fat burners that work by specific scientific mechanisms. Lipolyze, which is my daytime fat burner, and Somalize, which is my nighttime fat burner, and Sleep Aid. They work specifically to suppress appetite, to trick the body into burning stored body fat, okay, and releasing that stored body fat, releasing that energy as heat, and by maximizing the efficiency of the mitochondria, which are the energy, or fat oxidizing organelles inside the cells. So if the little engines inside the cells burn fat better, they'll burn more fat. So that's how Lipolyze works, and it doesn't stimulate. You can take them up to right before you go to bed. It's not going to keep you awake. I like that. I think both of those products, Lipolyze and Somalize, great additions to any fat-burning stack, especially for a natural lifter who's looking for a natural edge. Obviously, some of the thermogenics on the market, caffeine to a certain degree, will increase thermogenesis. But you know what the problem is? People take too much of it, and it goes from being a nice thermogenic to being an insane stimulant. And that's going to, that might blunt your appetite a little bit, but you're going to crash off of it, number one, and you're going to overstress your body. And as a natural athlete, when cortisol levels go high, there's nothing to counteract it. What happens is you lose muscle. So I would stick to the more natural, stim-free fat burners on the market, of which I think the Lipolyze and Somalize represent most of the potent natural alternatives to burning stored body fat.
We stay with the Instagram page and go to Matt Fritzler95. I hate this show so much. I would rather do George Farah's CrossFit police officer training program while following his incorrect 2-pound formula he posted as a tip of the day. That is a candidate right there. Dave, was the design of Species Nutrition inspired at all by your reptile venture? The music for the ad sounds somewhat reptilian, and the green and black design indefinitely seems reptile-ish.
Here's the truth of the matter. I wasn't even into reptiles when I launched Species Nutrition. I was actually sitting in an airport, and I was saying to myself, what can I name this supplement company? This is probably almost 10 years ago now. And I was reading a National Geographic, and they were showing something about Charles Darwin and the evolution of the species. And I said, wow, bodybuilders are a unique species of their own. And I was always an animal. I love animals anyway. I have fish tanks. I have 16 fish tanks, and I have 4 little dogs and a Persian cat. And I had one pet snake at the time. So when I started getting into snakes only about 8 months ago, it's kind of ironic that it kind of meshed with the whole species motif. And, they call it divine providence. I guess you could say coincidence, or maybe not such a coincidence, but I believe that everything happens the way it's supposed to, and if you follow your intuition and your gut, usually everything comes full circle. When I was in college, I would take courses that I didn't know how they interrelated to each other, and next thing I know, I'm learning things that totally work together, and I'm still using those same things that I learned from 20 years ago in school today in everyday life. So once again, meaningful coincidence.
Let's go to fitness_Jack. Dave, I hate this show so much that I'd rather hire you to get me ready for Nationals 2016. What's the whole idea behind insulin? Put more size, muscles, and if so, once you're off, how much of those gains do you actually keep?
Look, insulin is a very anabolic hormone. And how do we define an anabolic hormone? An anabolic hormone is defined by anything that drives nutrients into the muscle cell. Insulin does that great. The problem is that insulin does another great job of storing nutrients in fat cells. So insulin is a fat storage hormone. So there's a fine balance between getting an anabolic boost from insulin and getting a fat storing boost from insulin. We don't want to get both, okay? And we certainly don't want to get the fat storing boost. So how do we manage it? Well, first of all, you have to ask yourself, why would you want to take insulin? who should be taking insulin? Insulin should be taken by people who are insulin resistant or have a hard time absorbing their nutrition. Those are people who are on usually large amounts of growth hormone, because growth hormone does the opposite of insulin. Instead of storing things, it mobilizes, which is great in terms of losing body fat. Not so great sometimes when you're trying to store, calories or get calories into the muscle cell to help, repair them. So some people who take insulin take growth hormone, become insulin resistant, meaning they're not absorbing their calories. Those people should take insulin. If, however, you're one of these people who gains weight real easy, gets fat real easy, and has a lot of trouble losing body fat, you should not take insulin. If you take insulin, you will just get fatter. You will not have any more anabolic drive than you already have, because you probably have enough insulin present. When I was competing back in the day, I was always a very lean guy. I had trouble gaining weight to begin with. When I took growth hormone, I noticed I couldn't gain weight. Most people, you take growth hormone, you get big, right? No, I wouldn't gain weight. I would lose weight. And I realized that I couldn't absorb the food I was eating. I was eating 10, 12 times a day. For me, insulin helped me. But I know a lot of guys that used insulin and just got messy looking. When you stop the insulin, you don't really lose any of the gains. You will lose the fluid retention you get from it. So a lot of people think, I lost 5 pounds. That's just the fluid you were holding. That wasn't real muscle.
You're watching Ask Dave on RxMuscle.com. Once again, a reminder, tonight, Heavy Muscle TV, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Special guest Mike O'Hearn joins us live in studio for the duration of the broadcast. We're also going to be joined by John De La Rosa, Kevin Jordan, Erica and Sandra Blockman, twin sisters, for a special announcement on Heavy Muscle TV tonight at 7 p.m. on RxMuscle.com. Let's go back to our live stream, live chat box with Rick Sessman. Dave, I hate this show so much that I have adrenal fatigue and metabolic stunted feelings that only George the Guru can fix. Do you believe that older competitors, 40 plus, be competitive after long layoffs?
Look, it's a lot harder to come back to any sport, not just bodybuilding, after a long layoff. Now, a long layoff can be defined as being off a bodybuilding stage for 10 years, but still in the gym training. Those guys usually do all right because they never really stop. The guys that took off 10 years without training at all or hardly weight training and lost all their size and then try to get it back, those guys have a tougher time, obviously, because they've changed their body composition tremendously. They've gained more fat, they've lost more muscle, or they lost the muscle and just didn't gain fat. But regardless, they lost the muscle and they got to try to get it back. Now, if you're Kevin Levrone and you get the muscle back in 6 weeks, that's a different story. But for most people, it's hard to make a comeback after that. I'm helping a guy by the name of Craig Licker. He's competing this week in Chicago. He turned pro at the 94 Nationals when DeMeo won. He won the middleweight class. I worked with him through the 90s, and he kind of didn't compete for 10, 12 years. Now he's making a comeback, but he never stopped working out. So his body still looks good. He just hadn't dieted, so he had a lot of weird fat in weird places we had to get rid of. So once again, it all depends on how long you've been away from the gym, more so than the stage.
I want to see if this one is eligible for air. If I were to get word that in the future there would be Dave Palumbo. All right, let's try this one. This is on our Instagram page from Andrew Lemsback. Dave, if I were to get word that in the future there will be Dave Palumbo robots that spewed out mindless jargon from RX Muscle broadcasts, I would immediately go under the knife for his vasectomy so my children would never have to experience this kind of torture. I think we have our winner. That was phenomenal. Anyway, what is the best method to carbing up for a show or a photo shoot? How many days out should the process begin? What kind of carbs?
All right, well, that's homework, so I'm not going to do homework, but I'll give you a brief overline. I usually do 2 days of carbing. Obviously, with men and women, it's different. Women, I usually carb them 1 day. If we're talking about a man, I usually will do about 35 to 50 grams of carbs 6 times a day with their protein and fat meals 2 days before. I usually restrict water the night before. I'll stop drinking at around 8 p.m. for a Saturday morning show. That would be on a Friday night, obviously. And I always, feed some kind of junk meal usually on Saturday morning, the day of the show, and to really fill the muscles out, because a lot of people get very flat overnight. And I usually use diuretics, only starting maybe the Friday afternoon before a Saturday morning prejudging. Maybe I'll use a half a diazide in the afternoon, half a diazide before bed, and if in an emergency, a half a diazide early in the morning, the day of the show. And that's pretty much the protocol I use. I mean, once again, a lot of people sign up with me for last week contest prep because it's very hard. You have to customize that. It's impossible to give a formula that everyone can use. That's the ritual I use. Once again, I tweak it depending on who the person is. If the guy's got a crazy, freaky metabolism, I might have him do a burger and fries for Thursday night and Friday night before bed. And then on Saturday morning, I might give him a huge breakfast with pancakes and eggs and butter and all kinds of crazy stuff. If the person is barely in shape, I might just keep them on clean carbs. And I may only carb them for half a day. So once again, it's very dependent on what the person looks like.
We'll take one more question, and the reason we're going to take this question is because it has a place that is very dear to Dave, and that, of course, is Taco Joe's. Question comes from TNT on our livestream.com live chat box. Dave, have you ever tried a special burrito from Taco Joe's? We always see you do a bowl. If you had a burrito, what would it be? Remember, Romano said it's the perfect bodybuilding food.
Yeah, I used to always eat burritos until I realized that you can just put everything into a bowl. I don't really like the wrap, the bread. For some reason, I don't know, the bread comes up on me. It doesn't sit well with me. I think they have too many. If you have more than, I think Jack Lane said, if there's more than 5 ingredients, you shouldn't eat it. So the bread part of the burrito is what worries me. But I've eaten burritos before, and when I'm in other restaurants, I have burritos. I would put the same thing I put in there for my regular Taco Joe's. I would put rice. Usually I go with the jasmine white rice or whatever they got there. And then I go black beans, grilled chicken, and then I usually will put some kind of salad, tomato, cucumbers in there, maybe peppers, and I would probably, on the side, I would do the salsa and guacamole, and that I could eat that every day. I just put it in a bowl because I like to eat it with a fork. I don't like to have to hold the wrap, and then it gets all over my shirt, and I happen to be a slob, and I blame my grandmother, my Jewish grandmother, because every meal we would eat together, she would always spill something on herself, and she'd be like, "You see? I knew I was going to spill something on that. You'll be cursed too." And she was right. I'm cursed with her curse of spilling shit on myself. Doesn't matter where I go. I'll either knock the water over in the restaurant or I'll spill something on my shirt. It's inevitable.
On that note, we are going to conclude the questions portion of the show. We're going to go now to our winners. Dave, let's take the 2 finalists for the best question. That Taco Joe's question, in my opinion, has to be one of the 2 finalists. The other finalist I wanted to include was from Pain Train on the RxMuscle.com Muscle Central Forum, and that question was about where do you get your scientific studies from? What do you look for in terms of to show reliability, double-blind control?
I like that question. That's a good question.
All right, so that or the Taco Joe's question?
I'm going with the science question.
So Pain Train from the Muscle Central Forum, reach out to us, Sid at speciesnutrition.com, and we are going to get you a Species Nutrition gym bag as well as Nitralize.
And if you live in China, we're not sending it. I always pick the people who live in other countries.
All right, let's go to the best I hates, and we start with our friend Matt Fritzler. 95, I hate the show so much I would rather do George Farris CrossFit police officer training program while following his incorrect 2-pound formula he posted as a quote-unquote tip of the day. That's one. We go to Christos Paniatou, who's had one before, a zinger. Dave, I hate this show so much I'd rather go through all the tips of the week in social media. And then from our Instagram page, Andrew Lambsback, if I were to get word that in the future there would be Dave Palumbo robots to spewed out mindless jargon from RX Muscle broadcasts, I would immediately go under the knife for a vasectomy so my children would never have to experience this kind of torture. I don't think there's even a debate here.
All right, you pick it, Sid.
Andrew Lambsback, you are the winner. Reach out to me, Sid at speciesnutrition.com, and you will get Nitralize pre-workout by Species Nutrition. Once again,
I want to say one thing, Sid, and for all of those people watching, I know people really love this show. Not everyone catches it live. A lot of people watch the rebroadcast. Like our page below, like our YouTube page, like our Instagram page, like our Facebook page. That shows me that you guys appreciate what we're doing, and we'll keep doing it over and over again. Thank you for your support.
Once again, available now, limited edition caramel macchiato. It's macchiato or macchiata?
Macchiato.
Macchiato. I mean, I've had it at Starbucks a zillion times. Caramel Macchiato Isolized Limited Edition, available exclusively at speciesnutrition.com. Go check it out before supplies run out. And again, tonight, 7 p.m., Heavy Muscle TV returns. We are going to have Mike O'Hearn live in studio. John De La Rosa joins us, Kevin Jordan joins us, as well as the Blockman sisters, Erica and Sandra. 7 p.m. Heavy Muscle TV. Special thanks to our producer, Johnny Stiles. We will see you tonight at 7.